Our next guest is Tami Dixon, the producing artistic director of Bricolage Production Company. She is a 2008 recipient of the Fox Foundation Resident Actor Fellowship, which she used for an artistic residency at City Theater. Some of her recent performances include Pittsburgh Public Theater's Metamorphoses, Pittsburgh Irish and Classical Theater's Pinter Celebration, and Quantum Theater's The Task. Recently at Bricolage, she produced and starred in the critically acclaimed Neighborhood 3, Requisition of Doom. Her current project, Midnight Radio, is an episodic homage to vintage radio variety shows that City Paper calls funny, talented people doing funny, inventive stuff. Thanks for joining us, Tami.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. That was awesome. You're great.
Yeah, well, it's so true.
Oh, thank you.
On your website, you describe Midnight Radio as a Prairie Home Companion meets Saturday Night Live. Tell us about Midnight Radio and the unique experience of putting a radio variety show on stage.
Well, we at Bricolage means making artful use of what's at hand, and so it always is something that's organic that comes to us that we work with. We're really interested in breaking the fourth wall. We're really interested in connecting to our audience in a really visceral way. We really want our audience to be altered. I think drama is all about being altered, entering in one space and leaving in another. And I think that when the lights go up and they're shining on the actors and they're dim on the audience, it kind of leaves them out of the picture a little bit. So we wanted to find a way to really bring them into the experience more so that they were challenged to not just have a passive experience, but to really be present and to change. Whether that is by rolling on the floor laughing and tears coming out of their eyes, or whether they're really jarred by what we have on stage. So we really love, I keep saying we, Jeffrey Carpenter and I, he's my husband, he's the artistic director of the company. We're really interested in that style of theater making, of storytelling. And we've always been interested in radio. He was interested in radio before I met him, and I just think it's a really wonderful and unique way of telling stories. It's kind of like reading a book. It's really intimate. You get to decide what things look like. You get to decide a lot of the things while you're reading a book. And I think a lot of times theater makes that decision for you. With everything is just there for you. You don't have to do any of the work. I kind of want our audience to do a little bit of the work, So having this format of radio really allows us to really leap and jump and create a lot of new things and new experiences for the audience, allowing them to be a part of the situation, whether that be through choosing what playwright goes to the second round when we had our SmackDown last year, or by participating in the Mad Lib Radio Minute, or by participating in the game show. We have different game shows that we play during the show. So we want to make them part of the process, a stakeholder in our game.
I think something else that really speaks to that is your suggestion for the audience to close their eyes during Midnight Radio, because then they can imagine the sounds and the characters. Speaking of which, tell us about the sound effects and how you got into sound effects.
Well, I got into it kind of by accident. We were working with someone who was our sound designer, and he left us kind of abruptly, and so it was left to us to really decide what we're going to do. And I kind of jumped in there and just said, all right, I'll do it. And did a bunch of research on Foley sound effects. It's called Foley sound effects. Jack Foley is kind of the godfather of this style. He worked in radio, and then when film came along, there were silent films. He wasn't really necessary there, but then the talkies came, and even today, you watch any film, and every sound that's not a vocal sound has to be recreated in post-production after the movie is wrapped. And that's like anything from putting ice in a glass to feet walking on gravel or sand or pavement. And I'm just fascinated by that. So a lot of my life these days during the season of Midnight Radio is like going into stores and banging on things and seeing what sound that makes. I actually, for this round, I contacted Prairie Home Companion. Tom Keith from Prairie Home Companion is their Foley artist, and I just thought, I really need an expert. I really need someone, a mentor, because I'm making it up as I go along, and we all work together. You know, whoever's in the cast and Jeffrey, who directs most of them, we all work together to really listen to see if this really sounds like a train, if this sounds like a car wreck. You know, and it's hard to kind of make that without using technology. It's a weird thing. We're all into all of this new fangled stuff that we have on our phones and in our pockets, and you know, we're going kind of backwards and getting simple about it. And so I contacted him just to see if I could have a mentor, and I could write to him periodically and ask him, how do you make the sound of a flash bulb? Or how do you make the sound of a screeching car? And he said, okay. He wrote me back right away. And so I'm going to begin a relationship with him to really get an expert opinion on a lot of these things. There's a lot of information on the web, and we find a lot of information on how to build a lot of our machinery, like the rain machine and the thunder machine and a car, and we have a glass box that we break glass to sound like, you know, glass breaking. But it's a lot of fun, and with our next show coming up, there's a lot of interesting sounds that we have to try to come up with. Explosions are really hard.
That makes sense. So you'll be doing episode 5 at the end of October.
Yes.
Does each episode run independent of each other?
In the sense that most of the time we have a different cast on it. The crew is mostly the same. I'm the main Foley artist. Jeffrey's the director. Andrew J. Paul is our stage manager, and Rich, I have trouble saying his last name, Schluzlebluski or something. I'm sorry, Rich. He is our sound engineer, and then we connect with local writers sometimes, and then we choose an old school story, something from the archives of radio, and it is independent in that way, but the format remains pretty much the same throughout, except for this last time we really deviated from the format a little bit because it's our second season and we really wanted to see if we can try this long form style. What we've been doing before then is having shorter little pieces, things with cliffhangers that might go on to the next episode that just might be cliffhangers. We wanted to see if we could tell one story throughout the evening, and that's what we did with this last one. Matthew Adams and Jeffrey Carpenter adapted this book called The Dark Side of the House. It's a true story about something that happened in Pittsburgh about this recidivist thief that was either was faced with spending the rest of his life in jail or getting this experimental medical procedure to see if they could cure him of it, and that was a lobotomy. And it was a really sad story, and we challenged our audience because we have set them up to believe that this is what midnight radio is, and we feel like, okay, we've done that. We've succeeded in making that happen, and that is a style that we know works. Now let's throw a wrench into the game and see if we can try something else. You know, not that we get bored or anything, but we really, as artists, we really need to keep challenging ourselves, to keep pushing the envelope, to keep trying to recreate this thing that we feel has a real foundation of success.
Great. Well, best of luck with episode 5.
Thank you.
Bricolage's Midnight Radio, episode 5, War of the Worlds, runs October 21st to 23rd and 28th to 30th. For tickets, call 412-381-6999 or visit them online at webbricolage.org. Thanks so much for being here, Tami.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.